Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to today's Pada Innovation Series, Digital Marketing, Top PR and Marketing Tips for Small Hotels. We have a great presentation today from the founder and managing director at VIM VIGOUR, Ms. Lynda Williams. But before I get to that, let me first introduce myself. My name is Paul Brangan, and I am the Director of Communications and External Affairs at the Pacific Asia Travel Association, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Before we get to the presentation, I do, of course, have a couple of quick technical notes for everybody today. For many of you, you've already used Zoom before, but just as a refresher, you'll see two functions at the bottom of your screen. There's a chat and a Q&A. Feel free to use the chat to engage with other participants. Say hello, where you're from. Please do note that by default goes to host and panelists. So if you want to talk to the other participants, you can just use the drop-down menu and choose all attendees. Or if you see somebody from the crowd, you can just talk directly one-to-one. If you have any questions, though, please do submit them using the Q&A function as noted on the screen. Please do not submit any questions using the chat function. It's a bit difficult to moderate both the chat and the Q&A at the same time, as there is always a lot of things going on in the screen. And that's it for all my technical notes. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and we'll get right down to our presentation today. So with us, I said we'll be talking about top PR and marketing tips for small hotels. And with us is the founder and managing director of VIM VIGOUR, based out of Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Lynda Williams.
Thanks so much, Paul. It's great to be with you all, and so many of you are dialing in from all around the world, and been to a fair few of those countries, and we're dying to get out of here and travel again. We've had our borders closed for 18 months, so the travel itch is real. So a little bit about myself before we get started. I have been in the hotel industry for 20 years. Gosh, it's flown by. I studied hotel management, and then I worked for Maybourne Hotel Group in London, Claridge's, the Connaught and the Berkeley hotels. And then I came out to Singapore to work for Aman Resorts. I looked after their marketing before going on to Como Hotels and Resorts to head up their PR. So I've launched over 20 new hotels. I've marketed and PR 60 to 70 different hotels around the world in different countries, from China to the US to Italy. So lots of great experience, lots of interesting stories to share at some point. But yeah, so my background's really in marketing and PR. And I now have a PR agency called VIM VIGOUR, which I launched 8 years ago. And we really specialize in helping travel and hotel brands get out there in the marketplace and promote their brands. So today we've just got 45 minutes, an hour, and I want to run through with you some really helpful PR and marketing tips, because it's COVID right now. The playing field's completely changed since 2 years ago. So I want to really give you some top tips and some help and advice of what to do with not much budget and how to navigate the next 12 months. So I'm just going to share my screen right now. And if you have any questions, we've got plenty of time at the end. So just raise your hand and we can have a chat. Right, let me share my screen. Here we go. So there we go. Can you see that okay?
Looks good.
Great. Here we go. So PR and marketing, that big world. When we're looking to do any PR and marketing plan, first of all, we have to have an aim and objective. Why are we doing? What are we doing? So what is the objective of our marketing campaign? What is the objective of our PR campaign? And what do we need to do? So it can be a number of different things, and we have to tag a number of different outcomes to those objectives. So for instance, you might just want to fill your room nights in your hotel once travel can be allowed into your country, or if you're already got guests flowing through the door, but you really need to up the ante and get your revenue up and boost your sales, you may need to create a campaign just solely to get bums on beds. Or you may need to change market perception and how your brand is perceived in the marketplace. You may have got some bad press before. I mean, there was a hotel in Bali many years ago, I'm sure you read about it, that was dumping plastic bottles in the river. It was quite a high-end hotel, and they had to change market perception and had to come up with some really clever and authentic PR and marketing campaigns to get credibility again. Or you might just need to keep your brand forefront, and that's what a lot of hotel brands are doing right now. Whilst they can't accept visitors, how do they continually keep their brand front of mind in their key target audiences? So it can be a number of different things. So it's just key to understand what you actually need to do before you start looking at any research or strategies or plans. Market research is just so key. In my agency, like we never stop researching. We never stop reading the news. It's our livelihood. And especially now, I'm sure you understand, it's imperative to understand what's going on across the globe. First, these are some of the things that we look at in PR and marketing. So first of all, look at your target audience. Like, what are they doing at the moment? What is their in-market sentiment? What are their restrictions with COVID? What is mood and mentality like? How are they consuming media? Because different countries consume media in very different ways. Asia perhaps is more digitally savvy than other parts of the world. Other parts of the world still love the print magazines and newspapers, even though that's sadly dying. China is very, very digital first. So it's really key to understand how your target audience is consuming data. And we all obviously all stuck to one of these the whole time. So really understand what the sentiment is, what's happening in that country at the moment, to make sure that your marketing campaigns aren't tone deaf as well. So just making sure every day, every week, you're understanding what's happening in your target markets. And then global trends and sensitivities. So really looking at what's going to be happening in the future. And there's a lot of anticipation in terms of when travel does come back. Will everyone be wanting to go on a sustainable holiday? Will everyone be wanting to look after themselves in terms of their mental health, their physical health, their nutrition, and their immune system? Are they looking for a holiday with lots of nature and outdoors experiences because they've been locked up in a concrete jungle for the last 18 months? And there's lots of other things to consider right now. I mean, the horrific news in Afghanistan right now. So we just don't know what's going to happen next. But it's just key to understand, like, what are the global sensitivities? What do people need? And what do we anticipate? And don't always go with the fads and the trends. I just received a report from Citibank, actually, and it was talking about the alternative plant-based protein market. I'm sure in Asia it's huge. In the US, they're just really beefing it all up, pardon the pun, but with alternative plant proteins. So it's basically meat made of plants. And it's all about sustainability, right? The plant-based protein is really going to help the globe with sustainability and reduce our carbon footprint. But actually, why people are consuming these alternative proteins right now is because they think they're healthier products, and in fact they're not. So always do your research, because people think they're choosing that for the sustainability value, but right now people are still choosing it for the health benefit. That is the number one reason. And the same goes for sustainable travel. Yes, everyone wants to be more conscious in terms of their spending, but a CNA reporter in Asia actually just did a big research paper on, are people really going to spend money and spend time on sustainability? And the answer was yes and no. Yes, the people who have time and have money to spend on sustainability in travel will absolutely do so. But the people who haven't had a holiday for 2 years and they just want to reconnect with their family, that's not going to be their top priority. So when you are looking at initiatives such as wellness and sustainability, make sure you have the guest in mind and make sure it's easy to integrate, and we understand what market trends are happening in each of your targets. And then, of course, in terms of research, like, what is the hotel and travel market doing? What's working? What are people talking about? But then I always like to look further afield when I'm doing market research for the travel and hotel industry in terms of what are other industries doing, because that's what inspires me. What is the art industry doing? What's the fashion industry doing? What's the sustainability industry doing? And how can we learn from them, and what's trending, and what partnerships we can do to really be part of the conversation. So market research is key, and we cannot ever stop doing it, not just the once a year for our 12-month marketing and PR plan. We have to be continually updating, rereading the news, be fully aware of what's happening on the global landscape, and then we can really implement that in a meaningful and authentic way into our PR and marketing. And then once you've done your market research, I always say, like, look at what you are as a brand and a product, and what are your unique market propositions. So like, who are your competitors, and what are they doing well, and what are they aren't doing well? And you can, you know, a lot of hotels are in competitor sets analysis in key cities, so you can kind of understand what other occupancy rates are doing. But also, I think social media is also a good kind of little nosy keyhole to see what's going on, like what's trending on their social media account, like who's liking what posts, and try to get an idea of sentiment through social media as well. And again, like signing up to competitor newsletters and campaigns, so you can get off the back of what they're pushing out to the market and what interesting initiatives they're doing. And then really carving out what makes you different, and how can you carve out your unique market propositions. So a picture here is a beautiful hotel in the Maldives called Patina, which has just launched, and we helped them launch. And as you know, the Maldives, it's full of beautiful luxury hotels, so many of them. They're all singing and dancing, underwater restaurants, over villa water, I mean, everything, you name it, slides coming off the roofs of villas, it's nuts. But Patina has really, they were already building their story, and it just so happened that, you know, COVID happened, and the need to be sustainable and the need to look at wellness was ever more needed. So their USPs are, they have a fully plant-based restaurant. Their property is more or less fully sustainable. They have a pool with spin bikes in that no one else has got in the Maldives. They have a huge artist in residence program that's really thorough with world-renowned artists. So they really took time to understand what their competitors are doing in the Maldives, and how can we A, be different, but B, be authentic and really appeal to the marketplace. So that all takes time and research, and to really understand where you sit and who you are as a brand. And branding is a whole new and separate presentation, but just to give you a little taste of it. So key messaging. Oh, we love talking about key messaging in our agency. So key messaging can be when you are launching a new brand, or just looking and refreshing your own key messaging. So, and I think everyone's had to do that the last 18 months, always refreshing it. Like, are we still relevant with what's happened over the last 18 months? How are we communicating with our guests? Because it's going so much towards the digital age. Obviously print, A, advertisers have cut their costs, but B, we can't actually pick up, well, in Asia for sure, we can't pick up magazines and newspapers in clubs, and certainly we're not going to airport lounges. So print is really dying, and it's really become a digital first world when it comes to PR and marketing. Also look at, like, is everyone saying the same thing? Because you really want to stand out when you're communicating. It's like the same old hotel luxury USP marketing messages. Like, how can you stand out, and how can you be different and relevant at this moment in time? And tone of voice and language use is always important too. And having that emotional connection with your guests, of making them feel kind of loved. And, you know, the hospitality is all about making people feel welcome, coming to my home. So, and I think in the travel industry, we've got a really amazing opportunity to be authentic in that way. So rechecking your tone of voice and language. Are you too corporate? Are you too informal? What kind of language are we using? Do we sound exciting? Do we sound approachable? Do we sound fun? If I was the guest, would I want to come and stay here? Would I want to read this piece of marketing material? So always putting yourself in other people's shoes and making it as engaging and exciting and authentic as possible. So strategies and marketing channels. So who's had to change their plan at least once in the last 6 months? How many times have we had to change our plans over the last 18 months? For me, when COVID hit last March and I had 12 to 15 hotel and travel clients, it was an absolute jungle. It was like being in a wind tunnel every day and trying to understand what we were going to do and how we were going to support our clients. But now we've all got used to having different plans. And here in Singapore on the ground, we have 3 plans for all our clients. For any launches, we're like, right, plan A, if this restriction is in place, plan B, if events are allowed, plan C, if borders are open. And yes, it's quite exhausting to have all these plans and then flexibility, but that is the lay of the land now. And it's actually a good thing to be flexible, because the more flexible you are, the more choices that you can have. So I always say with strategies, be as flexible as possible. And also your key stakeholders, so your bosses or the owners of your company or the heads of tourism boards, like educate them on why we have to have a strategy that is flexible and looks at different scenarios, because you're being pretty smart in that way and you're looking at kind of what could happen and eventualities further down the line. Again, crisis communications is key, and that's a huge topic to go into, but having a relevant crisis communications plan that you can plug into really quickly is really, really key. And it doesn't have to be super complicated, just having a simple structure as to what would happen if and when things go wrong. That's really, really important in terms of who you go to and when, to ensure that you carefully control communications and messaging around an incident or an event. So holistic approach, right? So yes, being in-house and working for lots of hotels and travel and tourism boards, people tend to work in silos. So you've got the PR team, you've got the marketing team, operations team, sales, and everyone's doing their own separate things. The best advice I can give any hotel company is to work together. Look at your overall objectives and work together in terms of what we need to do with sales. What can operations actually do? So us as marketeers and PR, we can get so creative and come up with these amazing ideas that's like world changing. But if operations can't pull it off and sales are like, yeah, that's not going to bring in any room nights, it's a no-goer. So it's super important to work together. And I found the best results in any brand really is when all your teams work together on the same goal. And again, well-researched, socially aware campaigns. So we just released a trends paper actually last week on trends in the PR industry. And one thing is being socially aware and just understanding what is happening on the ground, whether it's to do with COVID, whether it's to do with, unfortunately, war, whether it's to do with healthcare work, it could be anything. I had a client, so this is just an example of not listening to the news. I had a client a couple of months ago and they're like, yeah, let's do a campaign and we're going to feed all the healthcare workers on the front lines. And we were like, there's only 20 people in hospital right now. And we had a huge campaign 12 months ago in Singapore when we were all looking after the healthcare workers. And they clearly not really understood where we are right now on the front line. And they thought it would be a great idea to engage media, to do this socially responsible campaign. But by not understanding what's really happening in the marketplace, you can really miss the mark and come across tone deaf and not very smart. So when you're looking at putting campaigns out there, again, make sure it's well researched. In the country that you're doing it to, if you've got people on the ground there, ring them up and say, hey Joey, how's it going? Like, we're thinking of running this quite powerful campaign. What would you think about this? So never be afraid to ask people their opinion in your target markets as well, and to see what's really happening. So yeah, that's just a little bit about your strategy and marketing channels. And then our marketing mix. So to create really powerful PR and marketing campaigns, you really need to have everything in sync for maximum impact, and also be singing from the same hymn sheet. And what do I mean by that? It means that all these beautiful, juicy key messaging that you've created to make sure that all of your marketing outlets is saying the same thing at the same time. So if you think someone will be scrolling through their Instagram account and they'll see an amazing post about, on a beach somewhere in Hawaii, for instance, and then they get an EDM in their inbox the next day, and then they pick up the newspaper or actually read the newspaper online and see a news story about how Hawaii is just the most amazing place to go for a holiday. So that's when you really get impact with marketing and PR, is when you're really firing off on your cylinders at the same time. So, and I'll go into a little bit about all of these areas in a sec, but and events as well. I mean, we really want to do events eventually, and because it's such a great way to engage people and reconnect and really get them involved in the brands. So over like the last 15, 20 years, I've always found is that when you meet someone in person, or they meet the owner of a brand, or you create that relationship and connection, you've got them for life then, and you get a really loyal following. And and then you get all the word of mouth on the back of that. So eventually, when we can do events, creating meaningful and engaging events is just key, and it always works really, really well. But again, they need to be authentic and engaging, and not just during an event to check the box for the sake of it. Like, think about what is going to be relevant in your market there and then. So public relations, PR, oh, how it's changed. As I was saying before, we are very digital first now. 10, 15 years ago, it was all about getting print and the front page of Travel and Leisure and Condé Nast Traveler, which are still beautiful magazines, which have evolved amazingly well into the online space. But we really are digital first now. So whatever you do, really think about a digital first approach. And so there's a few reasons for that. Not only are you getting brand exposure on your site, but it really helps with your own SEO of your website, which I'll go into a little bit, a few slides down. But digital first is key. If you don't have the luxury of having a PR agency, I've got some tips here of what you can do without a professional to do it, and of ways that you can get some nice placements in your key targets for not having to pay a PR agency. So what I would do is look at your top 3 markets. Don't try and tackle everyone. You haven't got time. Look at your top 3 markets that are really going to be your key guests and your key consumers in the next couple of years. And then do some research and see what are the key top media outlets in those markets, and see who the editors are, who are the features editors, what are they writing about, and really start doing your research on what types of stories they're running. This is what I actually had to do. So when I started my job in PR, I was in marketing first, and then I went into PR. And I was promised there was going to be this amazing database full of journalists, and there wasn't. And I had to promote 12 hotels, and I didn't have an assistant. And I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? So this is what I did in Singapore, the Singapore market, when magazines were in vogue. I used to go get all the print magazines, see who all the editors are, get all their email addresses, invite them out for coffee, understand what they like, what they don't like, read their articles, compliment them on their articles. Oh, I really love that piece you did on blah, 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 blah. They absolutely love all of that. And if they're not in your market, then do your research. Look at, they're likely going to be on Instagram, see what they're posting about, what they're liking, send them something, send them a thoughtful gift, arrange a Zoom call, send them some beautiful coffee or a wine to have a Zoom call with. So there's ways of engaging them and make them your best friend. So just look at a handful of markets and a handful of media, and just focus on like 15 to 20 media, and that's it. And then when it comes to stories, so what I always say is give them the story. So journalists are really, really busy, more so busy than ever because of all the cuts with COVID, right? Print and online has all merged. Journalists now are expected to do both. So they're uber busy, and they are under so much pressure to get stories out, 10 stories out a day. Like I mean, you can see the difference in quality in news outlets sometimes as well. So that's why I like to literally write the story for them, so it's all presented properly. But give them the story and write it in a way that they would write it in, and pitch it in a way that it would really resonate with them. And that's how we get the best work is, hey, I know you do that column on the best hotel suites in the world. We've got this amazing hotel suite that we've just launched, and I think it would fit really well into that column. What a bad PR person will do is just fling out a press release to a big old list, dear friends, and like hope for the best. But if you just focus on a handful of people, creating meaning and creating a proper story with those journalists, 9 times out of 10, you are going to get a hit, because you are helping them with their job, and you're being bespoke, and you're being focused on what they need to write about. Another thing that we do with journalists and influencers that's worked really well over the last 18 months, when we're all totally socially distanced and separated, is gifting and unboxing. Yes, it can get a bit monotonous sometimes, but if you can create a really authentic and meaningful gift that the journalists can use, that they can use in their life, but that also brings your brand to life and really stands for your key values and what you really stand for, and merging the two together can work really well. So we've done everything from, we've done obviously yoga Zooms with sending a beautiful yoga mat and water bottles and teas after the yoga session. We've sent beautiful wines from South Africa to do a live safari in South Africa. We have done, what else have we done? We've sent fitness kits. So we've sent skipping ropes and weights and dumbbells and all these things to journalists that are really into wellness, on behalf of our hotel clients that really have a robust wellness vertical. So, and then therefore, most journalists as well have their own IG account. So therefore they'll get it on their IG stories. So you get a lot of value from sending them a gift. Not only are you strengthening your relationship with them, but you're getting out their IG, and you're keeping your brand front of mind. So when they are going to start writing about travel again, they're thinking about you, and that's what you want. Press releases. So press releases, again, they always need to be really well written, and no more than 1 page. Journalists are really, really busy, as I was saying before, and they literally get hundreds of press releases in their inbox a day. So make it fun, make it engaging, make the headline super catchy. And get what you want to say in that first paragraph of your press release. And then you can go into the details at the end, but don't send them a 3 or 4 page press release. Keep it snappy. And if you've never written a press release before, there's so many examples online. Go to your competitors. Quite often they have a media library, and see what they're writing about and see what their style is, and create your own unique style for your press releases. And the last thing that I just wanted to talk to you about in public relations is PR value. So I'm not sure what you all know about PR value, but the old-fashioned way to measure PR is if you get a page online or in a magazine, is to times it by 3, because it's 3 times more credible than the advertising value. But we actually work with our clients to try and change that, and we have more tailored deliverables, because as I was saying earlier, if your aims and objectives is to change perception in the market and not necessarily drive room nights, then you're going to be tagging keywords about how the media is describing you, and you're going to be looking for specific words to measure about what is the market sentiment. If you are doing a campaign to measure room nights, then tag that to your deliverables instead of PR value. So you're looking at, okay, how much revenue did this campaign actually drive? Or how many, if you're a tourism board, how many visitors does this generate from this particular key feeder market? So always be smart with measurables, and also educate stakeholders and owners of businesses about how to measure PR, because quite often it's quality over quantity. And by giving them examples of how PR should be measured, you'd look better. They feel better that they're getting really good quality results, and they've got someone smart in control of the marketing and communication. So always make them tailored and tailored to each of your campaigns. So social media, wow, yes. Social, quite often now we are doing social media first campaigns. Even though we were a PR agency, we actually rebranded 3 years ago, and we now call ourselves a communications agency because we do the full spectrum now, and you really have to. Quite often we do social first campaigns. Social media is equally, and sometimes if not more important than PR, and we all know how much people are on IG. Here's the statistics here. 1 billion users are on IG every day. How nuts is that? And 71% are below the age of 35. So all the millennials and Gen Z are on there, it's one of our key target markets in the travel industry. So they're there swiping through their IG every day. And then in other countries, you need to understand what is relevant for them. So obviously China is very different with Weibo. Tweet's more prominent in the US, Twitter's more prominent in the US. YouTube is one of the biggest platforms now. So video is so important. If you can get good videos out there, you're absolutely winning, because you can get that on social, you can get it on your YouTube and your Facebook, and also integrate it in your website campaigns as well. So we also work with a lot of relevant, socially responsible as well, KOLs and influencers. And choosing the right ones is really important. There's a lot of great software out there that you can pop in the username's Instagram handle to see, are they worth engaging with? Are they hot or are they not? Or they're just a phony IG account. But what you can actually do is there's simple ways to see how engaged there are. Like, it's not just about followers, it's about how many likes each post gets, how many comments each post gets. So you're really measuring engagement on a social media account. So you really want to be getting a handful of social media influencers engaged in your hotel or your tourism destination. You want them to be brand ambassadors, not just get a one-off hit, but be with you for the journey and for the ride, and make sure that they're aligned with your brand. So if you're really into wellness, we'll go back to wellness again. If you're really into the wellness market, make sure that those influencers are also aligned, and they're not like, I don't know, they're eating burgers and drinking whiskey every night of the week, right? So you have to be on point when it comes to choosing the right influencers. Luckily, in the hotel and travel industry, quite often we can get them to stay complimentary, and we don't have to pay them. A lot of other brands, including fashion brands and product brands, they have to pay to play, right? But with travel, you can actually offer them a nice holiday and experience in return for social media posts. Again, we have contracts in place for when we do offer complimentary travel and hotel stays, to say, if we give you 5 nights free and complimentary F&B, you will give us this amount of IG posts, this amount of IG stories. And by the way, we'd really like your pictures to use on our channels at the end of the day. So make sure that you get everything written down, because there are some freeloaders out there. So social is key, and creating engaging social media is also really key. So I'm going to go through some of the best ways to get content. And again, we've run loads of social media campaigns for hotels around the world. And honestly, it all just relies on really good quality content and really getting the teams on the ground there, understanding, educating them and about how we're using social media, and getting them excited and getting them engaged and capturing key moments. So quite often we've instigated staff competitions. So make it a competition who has the best IG picture of the week. Get them involved, get them excited. Also look at the consistency and the look of your feed, making sure it all has the same filter. So this top icon here is an app called Visco, which is super cheap to use. We use it for all our clients, and we have different filters for different clients, depending on what their branding is, what their aesthetic is. So you just choose one, you run all your pictures through that, and then you're good to go. User-generated content, which is what other people post about you, is absolutely gold dust. It's amazing, and we often reuse their photos as well, which is super, super great stuff. And again, get staff engaged taking pictures of guests, because if they're the ones creating all this amazing user-generated content, help them create the content as well, and create Instagrammable moments at your destination or in your hotel. One of the worst restaurant launches in Singapore we had was about 18 months ago. And they thought it was a really good idea that the lighting was really, really, really dim. So when people were going in there, they weren't posting anything on IG because it was just so dark. So yes, they got loads of public relations, but nothing was on IG at all. And the restaurant actually flopped in the end. It was an okay restaurant, but because it didn't have any social media presence, no one kind of knew about it after PR was launched, because people literally couldn't take pictures. It was pitch black. So I always say that to restaurant designers, and restaurant designers are taking that into account now in terms of when they're designing restaurants. Is the table lit up properly? Yes, we want sexy, moody lighting, but can people take a picture of their food shop? So yeah, it's getting to that stage with Instagram, if it hasn't got to that stage already. IG stories are equally as important as your feed, and quite often they trend better. And the thing is with IG stories is you can be a little bit more relaxed and informal, because it comes and it goes, and you can be really in the moment with magical moments in your destination as they're happening. Don't overstyle it. Some people try and put like neat little boxes in and make it look like a magazine. People don't want that. They want to have a real insight into your destination, into your hotel. Get excited. What's happening behind the scenes? Like, do you have like a hotel dog? What's he up to today? Are the turtles hatching on the beach today? Have you just got some amazing produce just arrived into your kitchen, like some beautiful asparagus or fresh tomatoes or fish that's just been plucked out of the sea? So just keep it really authentic and showing a real window into the life of your hotel or destination. And there's three other things in here I just want to go through. Is Canva. So Canva is, it's like a graphic design tool, but we use it for everything. We use it for IG posts, if we have to put together a little poster for Instagram. We use it for EDMs and newsletters. We use it for flyers. It's super cheap. It's like $200 a year. Anyone can use it. I can literally whip up a logo for someone in 2 minutes. It's like the best thing ever. So definitely invest in that if you don't have an in-house graphic designer or don't have the money to pay an external agency to do it. It's super key and easy. And then the last two ones are Later and Sprout Social. These are really good tools for social media. There's also things like Hootsuite again as well, but they really help measure the impact of your social media campaigns and understand what time of day it's good to post, what posts have really been trending well, and what you need to do more of. So we do this all the time, because sometimes you can plan, yeah, we'll put that out here, we'll do that in 3 weeks' time because it's Mother's Day. But really like looking back and going, what were people getting excited about and why, and analyzing, because it's a bit of trial and error sometimes is social, is understanding is what is trending and what people are really loving. So always look back at your previous work and see what went well, what didn't go well, and what should we do more of. And again, tweak and change and look at market research and see how you can be part of the global conversation. How are we doing for time? We are okay. So CRM and digital marketing. So my first job 15, 20 years ago in marketing, I did a lot of CRM and customer relationship management. And it was all about the database and getting really clean data and educating the front of house hotel staff in terms of how important it is to get really good quality data from your guests, and getting their email address, getting their phone number, getting their mobile phone number. So a lot of companies now are communicating via WhatsApp. They're sending their marketing materials out via WhatsApp. So it's just looking at how you're going to communicate with your new and current guests and what are the best platforms to communicate with them, and keep that database clean. I can't tell you enough. Oh, in my hotel days, I'll be forever deduplicating duplicate profiles of guests. There'll be like 5 Lynda Williamses in a hotel, and how can you market to someone if you don't have all their preferences in terms of what they liked on property, what they've been clicking on in the last e-marketing campaign. So making sure that you have one single customer view for all of your guests. And you know, the hotel industry is getting more and more sophisticated of how we store that data as well. But it really is gold dust. And then when it comes to your digital marketing campaigns, like how are you going to get them to open your newsletter? So I have a sister company called The Soothe, which is an online wellness platform here in Singapore, and we send EDMs out every week. And again, we're always looking at market sentiment and what's happening on the ground here. And we sent one out 3 weeks ago when we were back in lockdown. Well, we're still kind of in lockdown. Our borders aren't open, but we can eat out now. And the mood was pretty low, to be honest. People were fed up. We're in our 3rd lockdown, and it was like, oh my God, this again. I'm sure you've all felt like that, or currently feeling like that. So we sent an EDM out packed full of mental health stuff. We're like, right, the market needs this. And our header was, are you feeling blue? And that got everyone to open it and everyone to read all this great advice from experts that we got together. So it's really understanding what the market is doing and how you can appeal to them at that moment in time and bring joy into their life, making it interesting. It's not just another hotel offer with a free massage and like 30-minute boat ride. Just make it interesting and creative and inspiring. And again, yeah, so with your EDMs, make sure you have really good images, because images sell. Our attention span online has gone from 40 seconds to 3 seconds in the last 40 years. So we ain't got time where, you know, I think I swear that we've all got attention deficit disorder when it comes to being online. So making sure that you've got beautiful images that can really capture people quickly, and also using a platform like Canva, or if you've got in-house graphic designers to make it eye-catching and impactful, is just super important. So SEO, some people are like, oh, what's SEO? And some people are like, oh, Google and search engine optimization, and it all sounds very technical. It's actually not that technical. But I always say to my clients as well, like, what are you doing for your SEO? So what I advise, so the way Google works is they crawl millions of websites every day, and they look at how authentic and credible they are. Do they have fresh content every day? Do they have interlinks in their site? Do they have links to external sites? What is trending and topical? And obviously, if your website is tagged appropriately, then you will start trending in SEO. Top 5 hotels to stay in Hawaii, top 10 best beaches in the Philippines. So if you can create content on your website that really appeals to Google search, then you can start trending up in Google more and more each time they're putting those keywords in and searching for what they want in your destination. So if you can, try to create a news or a blog page that's not just talking about your brand, but it's also talking about interesting things to do with your brand, to do with your destination, that to do with any partnerships that you're running, that it's making it really interesting. It's also helpful for people. So if they're visiting your hotel, you're providing what's to do in the area, whether that's restaurants and bars or destination or things to do, you're being helpful, but you're also adding value in terms of credibility towards your SEO. One thing that we use a lot at work is Neil Patel's Uber Suggests for keywords. So say, for instance, I'm writing a story on best hotel suites and I want it to trend. I will type that into Uber Suggests and it will give me all the keywords that are associated with that and that's most searched for. So then I will then make sure that when I'm writing that piece for my website, I make sure that that's in the headline. So headline 1, headline 2, your SEO expert, and your web developers will know about this on the back end, and your key tag. So every page on the website has key tags on the back end, and all it is the keywords. So if you can just get your keywords right, lace them through your blog post or copy, you're instantly going to start trending more with Google, and when people come to search for your hotel destination, or, you know, that what's going on and what's hip and happening. It was really funny. So with, and again, another example with the Soothe, because we're really able to tell what's happening with market sentiment on the ground here in Singapore. So with the wellness scene, 6 weeks ago, sorry, there was a huge spike on the Soothe. I was like, what is going on? And I logged on and everyone was searching for, where can I do an outdoor workout, because all the gyms were closed. And because we'd had a really well put together in terms of SEO piece on top 10 places to work out outdoors in Singapore, it was trending and the website was almost nearly crashing. So it's just an example of having the relevant content at the right time. And so finally, what to spend your money on. I know budgets are really tight at the moment. No one's got big budgets anymore. So you have to do what you can with what you've got. I always say this to all my clients, photography is key. Like having good images one image can sell a destination and hotel and speak 1,000 words. So always invest in good photography, because if you get good photography, it goes across your website, your EDMs, your social media, give it to your press team. I mean, it sells itself, honestly. So invest in yearly or quarterly photo shoots and keep it up to date and make it fresh and interesting, like not stale hotel room shots, like get some guests in there, make it a lifestyle piece. And then also, you know, we're talking about the iPhone, like our iPhones are pretty good when it comes to photography. The portrait mode, if you select that when you're taking a picture, the portrait mode is amazing for taking really good shots. So just play around with your iPhone. I mean, I take loads of pictures for our clients on my iPhone when I'm at their properties, and it's amazing what you can really do without hiring a professional photographer. Invest in digitally savvy multi-channel comms experts. So when we actually hire staff now, we need them to be digitally savvy. Like, what do you understand about digital? What do you understand about PR, marketing? Like, because the speed the speed in which digital is evolving, we need to work with people who can jump on trends, understand how it all works together across each individual channel. So whether that's hiring someone in-house or getting an agency to do it, just make sure whoever you hire understands all channels. And again, you know, with PR agencies, how we do so well is because we've embraced the digital age. The PR agencies that aren't doing so well is they're still stuck kind of in just doing print and online articles. They haven't embraced social media. They haven't embraced influencers or partnerships. So it's really important that whoever you choose has a multi-channel approach. And then always have a little bit of a budget for social media influencers and boosting. Like boosting can actually go a long way on social media if you want to boost a specific experience and you quickly need to get some guests in. You can boost for not a lot amount of money and get great followers and great impact from IG. And also for social influencers and also media, if they're visiting your property, a lot of them need their flight paying for. So I would always invest in flights. Obviously, this is going to be next year by the time a lot of us can travel to these destinations. But yes, that's what I would definitely spend your money on. And that's it. I've kind of ran through some tips and questions, and I hope I've provided some insight to you. But if you have any questions, please fire away.
Well, thank you very much, Lynda. I think you could stop sharing your screen. I have a quick question for you before we get to this one question here, but I'll start off with one question myself. So what do you advise people, I mean, for hotels or, you know, anybody, if, you know, currently with the lockdown, would you tell them to cut down? I mean, what do you tell them in terms of what they're doing marketing wise? Should they still market, keep top of mind, or you ask them to reducing it? What's your advice on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about, as we said, about you don't want to be tone deaf. Like, hey, come to our beautiful resort when they can't literally get out of the country. You don't want to be tone deaf and appear like a bit silly, to be honest. But it's all, you want to communicate with them for sure, but it's in the right way. So like understanding, okay, what are they going through right now? It could be, hey, I know you're stuck in lockdown right now, but we've put together a top 5 list of the best destination films around that have been filmed all around the world that you can get really, really inspired about traveling and blah, 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 blah. I mean, there's simple things like that. It doesn't have to do with your brand, but it can be extra things that would help uplift their mood and engage them in your brand and product in different ways. So it's just being creative. And no, for sure, you need to keep your brand front of mind, but it's just understanding what's happening, as I said earlier.
Okay, we got one question here, and this is from Santosh.
Hi, Santosh. How are you? I know you.
His question is, he says, great session. What's your advice on brands taking a position on social/current issues?
Well, it absolutely depends what the issue is. And then, you know, it's kind of going back to my crisis communications days. It's what is the objective of what you're wanting to say, right? So if you want to get involved in a conversation around social issues and be seen to be a collaborative and a community supporter, absolutely. It just needs to make sure that the content that you're sending out there is meaningful and it's on brand and it's worthwhile and it's not just putting something out there for the sake of it. And then when it comes to political issues, be very, very careful. I generally advise our clients not to comment on anything political. Just keep that to the side. But anything social that's, you know, if we look at the crisis in Afghanistan right now, a lot of my clients are doing like fundraisers and they're doing what they can to support people and try and get them out of there. It could be things like in some of my friends in Bali right now. You know, it's a pretty sorry state of affairs down there because they haven't had tourists for a long time now, and there's people on the streets homeless, so they're being vocal about it, but in the right way, and they're creating campaigns, they're getting the community together, and they're communicating like what's really happening and what we can do to help. So I think being seen as socially responsible but socially aware is really, really key and important. And for brands to really show that they have heart and soul, and it's not just about them, but it's about the greater good and the wellness of our environment and our community, then absolutely get involved for sure.
Just to follow up to that question though, I mean, if you get criticism for not taking a stance on a political issue, you know, do you not respond to it, and how would you suggest someone respond to it?
Well, that all depends. You can, if it's a political comment or situation, then if you have been targeted because you are left wing or right wing or whatever else, then you need to have a really like robust crisis communications plan in terms of what you are going to say and how you're going to respond to these comments. I would never just get involved in things just for the sake of it when it comes to politics. I would absolutely avoid it. But if a brand or a company gets targeted for whatever they're doing, then you absolutely need to respond to that in the right way. A, you need to protect your brand, but B, you also need to be honest and authentic. And it really depends on the situation. I haven't really dealt with any political situations, but I've dealt with everything from data hacks to a restaurant burning down to food poisoning. What else have I done? Yeah, I've done a lot of crisis stuff, but politics, I generally advise not to get involved in unless you are specifically targeted because of an owner's political point of view. So stay out of it.
All right, great answer. Let's move to the next question here. This is from Mohammed. Customer service is really important nowadays, but lots of hotels, especially small hotels in Malaysia, are lacking on that. How do we enhance this issue?
Well, it all comes back to training and really engaging staff in terms of what is customer service and what does it mean? Because I feel that training nowadays, it's like, hey, come in and do this and serve the guest that. But, you know, the best brands really take time in creating meaningful training plans and staff training plans. But first of all, they really get them to understand what they are doing and why they're doing what they are doing, and understanding that connection with the guest and what the overall outcome is as well. So if we do X, Y, and Z, this will end up in this amount of revenue, and then we're all going to get a bonus at the end of the year. So you know what I mean? It's like putting it into context and creating understanding for people in terms of why customer service is so important. Because in a lot of countries, and Singapore is one of them, the service industry isn't considered a proper job here. It's all like everyone has to be a doctor or a lawyer or work for the bank. But actually, service is one of the most powerful and important industries in the world, and it really is underrated, and it's how we serve each other, and we're all serving someone, whether we're not in a traditional service, you know, customer service job, we're always serving someone. So it's also empowering them to make a decision as well. I think some of the best service I've ever seen is at the Upper House in Hong Kong, and why is because they empower their staff to make decisions on the spot. To a certain degree, they give them some leeway, but they're not like, oh, hey, let me go and check my manager. They empower their staff. They train them really well, but they empower them to make decisions on the spot. And you're providing the best customer service when you can really do that and be intuitive. If someone arrives on your property and they're super sick, for instance, and they've got, I don't know, a stomach bug, or I was going to say cold and flu, but perhaps not. And they're able to send up some ginger tea or some medicine, or just a nice video to watch because they're in bed and they're not feeling well. Like, so it's just allowing them to have that intuition to provide service as well. So, but it really goes back to staff training and engaging in them and making it a fun and great environment to be in.
Yeah, I can imagine if as you empower them, they'll be more likely to share, you know, their work on social media and Instagram and sort of help promote the company as well.
Yeah.
You know, I want to go again. I'll just remind you, the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the Q&A just at the bottom of your screen. I want to go to something that you talked about at the very beginning of your presentation about, you know, making sure you have market research, you know, like getting sentiment and stuff like that, sentiment analysis and that kind of aspect. You know, there's a lot of services out there, they're kind of expensive, but if you're a small, you know, an SME, that can be difficult to do. So what would your advice on that to people who might not have those resources?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, I used to want all those reports too. And when I was in house, we never had the budgets for those big glossy reports. So I generally start by reading all the travel news, first of all, and understanding like what's happening in each market. So the main news sites and the credible news sites. So every day I scoot around the world. I look at the BBC, I look at New York Times, I look at the Atlantic, I look at Straits Times, and then I'll go to South China Morning Post in Hong Kong. So I try and get an overall view of what's happening in our industry within those different markets. And don't forget that news outlets are political as well. So that's why I try and get an even balance of different viewpoints. And then I kind of tend to go down rabbit holes. So I'll take hold of, oh, in this country, this is trending. And then I'll start Googling and searching and like reading around the topic. But one site that's really good actually is Skift. So Skift in the travel industry is really good, and that provides lots of useful tips. And yes, it's a membership base, but they do put a lot of free articles out there. So have a look at that. And then in our region, I mean, the travel trade press is really good. So like TTG and Travel Weekly, all those outlets are like pushing out like what hotels are doing. So you can get a lot of juicy stuff from there. And then, as I was saying before, like organizations and a lot of the big banks and corporations do their own market research because they'd like to provide it to their clients, and that's available publicly as well. So there's a lot of, and McKinsey's really good. So McKinsey does a lot of free reports. Get involved in McKinsey. I actually subscribe to their newsletters, and you can tick which specific areas you want news from. So there is a lot of free stuff out there. You just have to dig around a little bit.
Yeah, I believe, Skift is great. I think you get 3 free articles, and then I know there's some reports that are free, but and I believe their mega trends report every year is free.
Yeah, and also speak to your friends in other hotels and industries. Like, what have you got? And I've got this. We can trade. We can swap information. Like, have a cup of coffee with them. Going, oh, I see you've got access to that report. Can you tell me a bit more about it? So, I used to do swapsies. Like, I'll swap you this report for that one. You buy that one, and I'll buy this one. So do a bit of trade-offs.
Well, I don't know if those organizations that publish it would be happy to hear that, but yeah, I mean, it is a good tip, especially for those who lack the resources.
I know, yeah, and just sweet talk people. One of my, the best resources you can get is having good conversations with people who are like leaders in organizations, and getting a cup of coffee with them and understanding what's really happening, and that can give you a good inkling in terms of trends and what's happening out there. But yeah, there's lots of ways. You just it's just a bit of effort, but once you get that that's why I always hire people that love hospitality and that love travel. Once you've got that curiosity and that eye and that passion to just love what's happening in our industry, it kind of comes naturally. And then you're naturally every day, you're being nosy. You're like, oh, what's happening on IG? What's happening in the news? I'll ring a colleague up who's in the US, what's happening on the ground there. So it's just being curious at the end of the day.
Well, thank you very much. I think we've come to the end of the hour. So thank you very much, Lynda. And I'll just do a quick wrap up, and you can turn off your camera and stay on mute, but don't go anywhere, and I'll explain why. Okay. So let me just share my screen as I do a quick wrap up here. So once again, thank you to Lynda for that great presentation. If you've missed any part of it, we're happy to send you a copy of the video, and feel free to reach out to me. Just want to make you aware of some of our upcoming webinars. So next week, we're still in the process of actually, finishing the page and the registration, but I just want to make you aware of our webinar with UNICEF /COVAX on August 25th. We'll be talking about UNICEF's work in assisting the COVAX and Act A, and how, advocating for vaccine equity across the region. So that's on August 25th. On the next day, we have the Flavors of the North. We'll be hearing from various organizations in the Nordic region: Visit Denmark, Finnair, Heart of Lapland, Fjord Norway, Latvia, and Visit Iceland. It's an hour and a half, but there's some great content that they've actually created for this webinar. So please do join us. That information is available, and you can register today for that webinar. We also have on August 31st, we have another workshop. It's entrepreneurial pitching. This is with Sigmund. So please do join us for that at 12 p.m. Bangkok time on August 31st. And then later on during the week, we have Pata Travel Mart 2021. I should have mentioned to you that the first 2 webinars I mentioned are open to the public. The one with Sigmund is for members only. And for Pata Travel Marts, it is booths for sellers are complimentary for our Pata International members. So, you'll see, we've been creating a lot of content exclusive for Pata members. We're trying to give more benefits to our members. So if you want to know more about becoming a member, feel free to reach out to us. I'll give you my email address at the end of this quick wrap up. I just want to also make you aware of another event, September 25th. This is our virtual Rural Tourism and Sustainable Development Conference. So you can register for that today. That information is public, and you can register for that today. So as I said, if you have any questions about our webinar, about Pata, about this presentation, feel free to email me. My email address is fairly easy. It's paul@pata.org. All information about Pata and our, becoming a member, our benefits, various activities, events, webinars, you can easily find on our website. It's www.pata.org. So what I said, why did I ask Lynn to stay? Because right after this, we have the Meet the Speaker networking session. So you don't have to leave. You can stay for that. What we're going to do is move all the participants from participants to panels. So you'll be able to turn your camera on and unmute yourself and actually talk directly to Lynda or each other. It's for us an opportunity. It's a bit informal for us to sort of network, see how, maybe talk about what's going on in in PR marketing or what's going on in the region, but feel free to stay with us. Or if not, you can go about your day. But if you stay, we're going to move you from attendee to a participant, to a panelist. So just want to make you aware of that. But that is actually the official end of the webinar proper. So for all of you who will be leaving now, thank you so much. And once again, thank you to Lynda. Thank you to all of our PATA members who have joined us today. Your continued support is vital for us, and we value and appreciate your continued support. So with that, I will just signal my colleague to end the recording, and then we will start moving everyone to a panelist.